Police have dispersed an anti-government protest in the very heart of Ukraine's capital using tear gas and batons. More than a week in, people have been calling for the president to resign over the decision to back out of a landmark trade deal with the EU. Alexei Yarashevsky has the details.
During the week, Kiev's central square was the stage of the mass protest of those supporting euro integration and opposing President Yanukovych's decision not to sign the Euro Association deal in Vilnius. It is no longer the case. Riot police is now controlling the area. During the night, several hundred policemen came here and dispersed the crowd. More than 30 people were arrested and more than 40 had to be hospitalized with different injuries. Many Ukrainians have been protesting against Yanukovych's decision. I talked to some of them. Let's have a look at my report.
Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Ukraine. A similar picture, but looks are deceiving.
While a number of European countries has been protesting against Brussels' policy, Ukraine is probably the only one where people are taking to the streets in tens of thousands to support the idea of Euro integration.
We deserve to be in Europe.
The deal would have allowed us to get better education in Europe.
But this was not about being in the EU. Joining the Union was not even on the table. The 200-page blueprint of the agreement never said anything about a visa-free regime.
My wife can go to Poland and buy a lot of food for just 10 hryvnia, which is just over $1. That's twice as much as I can buy here for 100 hryvnia.
But the government was concerned that Ukraine's domestic products would be swamped by cheaper EU goods. The worst-case scenario could have been factory closures and a catastrophic unemployment rate. And Brussels was offering no compensation for any potential economic losses. Despite that, Ukraine's leadership has hinted a deal may still materialize in March next year. That would mean a longer winter on the streets for the angry crowds who are refusing to go home. They want the president's head before they do. Alexei Yarashevsky, RT, reporting from Kiev in Ukraine.
Protesters believe the country's leadership hijacked their future by leaving the EU trade deal on the scrap heap. Although warned a hasty agreement could devastate the country's economy, people still want in. As Kiev looks to revisit the agreement next year, RT's Paul Scott has been finding out what went wrong this time.
A moment of unparalleled access. The Ukrainian president, Viktor Yanukovych, comes face-to-face with EU leaders for the first time since stalling on an historic trade deal. The whole thing caught on camera. It's clear that Kiev's decision to halt proceedings has rankled EU leaders following years of negotiations. The EU senses outside influence.
We have to set aside short-term political calculations, and we may not give in to external pressure, not the least from Russia.
Yanukovych says the financial deal on offer isn't large enough to prevent damage to Ukraine's flailing economy.
Of course, neither Ukrainian businesses nor the government have this amount of money, or will have anytime soon. That's why Ukraine is not ready to take responsibilities it's not capable of fulfilling.
So where does this leave the situation? Ukraine's proposals for trilateral talks with Russia were rejected by the EU, while Brussels' finances may not allow them to increase the offer to Kiev.
Look at the European Union. Massive rank unemployment throughout the course of the entire Union. They have a euro currency project which is a fiasco. Realistically, the only thing the European Union can try to do is keep blame-storming anybody. Russia, who cares? Because the European Union is ultimately falling apart at the seams.
So the EU depart Vilnius contemplating what might have been. Despite courting President Yanukovych, they simply seemed unable to offer him a deal that was tempting enough. Paul Scott, RT, Vilnius, Lithuania.
And